But I'd like to start with thanking you all for joining us for our Outdoor Florida webinar series this November. It's Florida Paddle Sports Month, so we'll be focusing on our lovely guest, the Florida Paddling Trails Association. And today we're joined by Dorsey DeMaster, who is the president. She was the first female veteran and first association president to complete all 1,515 miles of the Florida Circumnavigational Saltwater Paddling Trail. And today she's going to be sharing with us about her journey on the trail, as well as a little bit about the Trail Angel program and the CT trail itself. At the end of the presentation, we are going to have some time for a question and answer session. So feel free to save your questions or put them in the chat as we go, and we'll read them at the end. And like I said, we are recording today, so this will be emailed out in a few days. And Dorsey, I think we're good to go if you want to get started.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Let me get this going. I'm going to move that over here. Okay, welcome. As Anna and Katie have said, my name is Dorsey DeMaster. I'm the president of the Florida Paddling Trails Association. And I'm really excited to be here today. It is Paddle Sport Month, and so this kind of hits the nail on the head. So I want to tell you about the Florida Paddling Trails Association, who we are and what we do. But before that, I have to put the cart before the horse, if you will, or vice versa. I have to tell you about the CT, and then I'll go on and tell you about the Florida Paddling Trails Association, because the CT came about first, and then the Florida Paddling Trails Association was established to support the CT. And then after that, I will tell you a little bit of what it's like to paddle the CT based on my experience and experience of others. So the Florida Circumnavigational Saltwater Paddling Trail is a mouthful, so we actually call it the CT for short. The history of it, back in 1980, it actually began as a vision by environmental lobbyist David Gluckman when he saw the Maine paddling trail. And fast forward to 1986, 1987, the Nature Conservancy and the Florida FWC purchased coastal properties from private forest companies along the Big Bend. This was a 155-mile Big Bend saltwater paddling trail is what was established because of the purchase of the properties. And it's considered the longest and wildest continuous coastal wetland in the US. In 2004, after the Big Bend Saltwater Paddling Trails was established, 17 years later, the Circumnavigational Saltwater Paddling Trail was officially designated by the state of Florida and under Florida statutes. And then 2 years later, the scouting of the entire 1,500-mile paddling trail around the state was completed by Doug Alderson. And that was no easy feat by any means. So that took, so it was established by the state in 2005, and 2 years later, Doug Alderson completed the scouting for the entire CT. And in that same year, the Department of Interior designated the CT as a national recreation trail. A little bit about the CT. Official start and end locations is Big Lagoon State Park, which is located just close to the Alabama border, and ends at Fort Clinch State Park by the Alabama border. You can paddle it clockwise or counterclockwise, it doesn't matter. And there's two ways to paddle the CT. You can be a through paddler, which is starting at point A, say at Big Lagoon, next to the Alabama border, and you just paddle, 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 paddle. You take 0 days of rest days along the way. It's very weather dependent, but you just continually go and until you are completed. That usually takes about 3 to 4 months. Another way to paddle the CT is by doing it in sections or being a section paddler. A section paddler, basically they can bounce around anywhere along the paddling trail and do sections of it. But as long as they connect, then it's considered completed. That usually takes about 23 months, maybe more, depending on how it's done. So we'll go back here real quick. So 2007, scouting and the trail was established. October 2007, Office of Greenways and Trails established the Florida Paddling Trails Association as the stewards of the CT. Florida Paddling Trails Association, we have a mission statement, and I'll run through them real quick. But number one mission is to develop and maintain water trails. Our primary mission is to support the 15-mile CT. There's primitive campsites, state parks, requires a lot of coordination and relationships with state, county, and private agencies. So this is our number one mission, is to support and maintain this paddling trail around the state, and the reason we were established. We also have gone a little bit beyond that, and in addition to the CT, we have mapped interior non-coastal routes. More than 3,000 miles of paddling trails have been mapped and documented within the state of Florida, and they're all available on our website, which I'll show you in a bit. How do we do it? We have a team of 100 and more volunteers. Our organization is an all volunteer, none of us are paid, and these are all very dedicated people that really like to paddle and support people who do paddle. Again, a network of dedicated volunteers, and we have trail angels. The trail angels, if a paddler's doing the CT and needs some type of assistance, we show up wherever they're landing at and give them support. And we also have hardworking trail keepers. So we have trail angels that support the paddlers, but we also have trail keepers, and the trail keepers maintain the sites. And some of these sites, we actually work with FWC and other state and local agencies to do these, maintain the sites along the CT. And more hardworking trail keepers. We do cleanup. We're very environmentally conscious, and we do a lot of cleanup and maintaining on the trail. Speaking of cleanups, number two is we protect the environment along the trail. We do all kinds of cleanups, not just along the coast, but in rivers and lakes and springs. We offer environmental training to paddlers. And we also partner with organizations committed to the stewardship of Florida paddling, Florida waterways. Number three mission is to serve as a resource and voice for our paddlers. I will just tell you, our FPTA website rocks. If you've never been there, I highly encourage you to go on it. It is packed. It's loaded with all kinds of information. We have a paddling section, which provides you maps and information about paddling around the state. We have a stewardship, youth program, supporters, and we also have a store. This website basically provides a one-stop shopping for anybody that gets on it. It has all kinds of information that paddlers need. This is one example of some of the paddling maps that you can access on our website. It actually has a map that you can download and information sheets that tell you about the paddle itself, the distance, the directions on how to get to take in or the take out points. And it also says what skill level is needed. A lot of times that could be based on the distance or maybe the openness of the waterway. And Speaking of one-stop shopping, again, I mentioned on the website, we do have an FPTA store. And when you go onto our store and purchase anything, it supports FPTA, which in turns just turns around and supports paddlers like you and I. And try not to come across as a salesman, but speaking of shopping, we do have an anniversary shirt that we are selling until midnight tonight. We're only taking orders until midnight, and it's the shirt is helping us celebrate our 15th anniversary. And again, all of the money goes towards supporting our nonprofit. And mission number 4, we promote paddling safety and education. And one thing we have is called the Legacy Fund. And this is really a shining star in my mind for our organization. For example, again, I'm going to go back to the store. If you buy something on the store, a percentage of that goes to this Legacy Fund. And the Legacy Fund, what it does is we partner with youth educators and give them grants to teach the younger generation about paddling and paddling safety. So it's a really good program that we have, and especially when you buy the shirt, now you know even more where some of the money goes to. Again, this is just more, we promote paddling safety and education. We're actually starting to look at working with organizations like the American Canoe Association to start offering paddling classes for in addition to the young kids. Okay, well, that was a little bit about the Florida Paddling Trails Association and the history of how the CT got started. Next, I'll tell you a little bit about the CT. 35 people have completed the CT to date. 28 were men and 7 were women. The shortest time period that entire 1,500 mile plus paddling trail was done was 1 month and 29 days. That was done by, again, a through paddler. They went and they just paddled every single day. The longest time is 13 years, 9 months, 27 days. Okay, this is an example of a section paddler. And the individual that did this he was working, and when he had time off, he would go and do a little section here, section there, and eventually was completed. The oldest person to complete the trail was a 70-year-old. I believe the youngest was 23 or 24. And we've had one person actually do it twice. Doing it once was not enough, so they did it as a section paddler and a through paddler. Today, we have 13 people registered that are in the process of doing the CT. The CT season is typically in the winter time here, but some people do it all year long. So, just real quick, a little bit about myself. My name's Dorsey. My nickname or trail name is Half Shell, and I am the first female veteran to complete the CT. And it was a journey of a lifetime, I will tell you that. It took me 23 months, 95 paddle days. I was a section paddler. I did half of it with paddle partners, and I did the other half solo. When you do the paddling trail, 50% of it's physical, 50% of it's mental. You'll face challenges, and you'll anticipate some things, and it can psych you out, but that's where that mental part comes in. Key to my success was planning and preparation. I come from an aviation background, so I am a big planner, but there are other people who have just gotten in their kayak and went, and no maps, they just went and paddled. So it can be done either way successfully, but I do highly encourage planning and preparation. I also did a lot of kayak training while I was in the process of doing this. And again, a big key to my success is the support. I had a mentor and all the FPTA volunteers and the trail angels along the way helped me quite a bit. I couldn't have done it without them. So here's a little bit of scene. I'm going to go through the CT experience, and I'm just going to show you a picture because a picture is worth 1,000 words. Okay. So the CT experience, here's the scenery. This is what was taken. He's the paddler. Actually, that was my mentor. We're looking west out into the Gulf of Mexico. That was a good paddle day because it was nice and calm. You get to experience and see real Florida. And the other real Florida. So this picture was taken off of the Big Bend. This was taken in Miami. That's what I call the other real Florida. Accommodations are great along the trail. You know, there are times where you can stay in hotels, but I enjoyed mostly camping. And like I said, you can't beat the accommodations. Oh, the food's delicious. I never ate beanies and weenies, I will tell you that, but this is probably as close as I came to it, which was instant mashed potatoes and beef jerky. But then there's also other food. Like, there's a lot of great seafood along the trail. And I love oysters, and that's where my nickname Half Shell came from. Post paddle fluid replacement. That's always important. The pageantry. The picture on the left was taking, this was actually at Big Lagoon, the official starting point. And it's a big deal when you see that kayak there, and on the right, you see me signing into the logbook, which many people before me have done. So there's a little bit of pageantry to it. The challenges. I don't know of any CTer that has not done what we call a muck walk. It's especially known in the Big Bend and in the winter months. Challenges. I always had to laugh when someone said, oh, well, you know, the CT, it's mostly intracoastal, right? Yeah, there's intracoastal for you right there. This is actually taken on the East Coast. And this picture was on the intracoastal. We were not out on the outside in the Atlantic. One thing nice about this is it was a good day. The wind was at our back, but still takes a lot of work to paddle in those kind of conditions. Challenges. There's a 65-mile section that's basically from Miami to a town called Lake Worth, and it's what we call the Concrete Canyon. A lot of it, it's narrow, and it's lined with concrete seawalls. And what happens is if you get a lot of boat traffic in there, it ends up being like an agitated washing machine, and you have to paddle through it. Weather is always a challenge. In this case, in this picture, I was thankful for the rain because it was hot and it felt good. And there are other times where thunderstorms come up. I mean, like I said, I was a big planner, and I looked at the weather. Everything was fine. The forecasts look great, but they still pop up on you like they are very well known to do in Florida. So I had to hide in the mangroves behind me. I had to tuck my boat way up in there to get out of the storm. And there's a picture of what one of the squalls looked like. These are just some of the people that I paddled with. And the celebrations after you complete a section or complete a major challenging portion, there's always celebrations. This was done after my paddling friend Mike and I crossed Tampa Bay. And this picture was taken at the end when I finished. one last thing about the CT. I will say that when you do the CT, it changes you from the inside out. This is a picture of a good friend of mine, Scott Warren, and on the left, you can see he was very corporate, and on the right, you can see a little bit of change in the corporate look after he finished the CT. And you also cultivate friendships that last a lifetime. That was my personal experience, and anybody else I know that's done the CT, it's the same situation. So one last thing for the Florida Paddling Trails Association, just to circle back around. Lots of good reasons to become a member of FPTA. We consider ourselves a family of like-minded paddlers. You get to connect with people and learn from others that paddle, and it is like a family environment. If you become a member, and again, with the purchase of the shirts and everything, you're supporting the Legacy Fund, the fund that gives grants to teach young kids how to paddle and paddle safely, and also education. It also supports some of our operating expenses, like running our website and some admin costs. And also, this is something new that we've really generated in the past year. FPTA members receive discounts at some of the participating business members. These are the ones on the right are just a couple examples. So I told you about the CT, how it was, how it started as a vision and how it was explored and established by Doug Alderson. And then I shared about the Florida Paddling Trails Association organization, that our primary mission is to support the CT, but we have other things that we are also involved with. And then I shared a little bit of the experience of what it's like to paddle the CT and the results of that. So I want to thank everybody for joining me this morning. And again, my name's Dorsey DeMaster, and there's my email address there, or on the website, you can actually go in and contact me via the contact button. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much, Dorsey, for going through that with us and sharing about the CT and your experience and the Paddling Trails Association. We're going to open it up for questions now, and I think we had a couple here in the chat come through. Maddie wanted to say that she loves your troll doll in the photos. And Jerry Mays was wondering if people are seeing damage due to this season's storms, and he's in Deltona.
Are people seeing damage because of the recent storms?
I believe so.
Okay. Yes, the whole, right now, the area, especially in the Fort Myers area, we're actually advising, because we do have 13 registered paddlers right now, all doing in various sections, but we've advised them to stay out of the Fort Myers area right now. It's not just the debris that's there, but the water quality. If you have a cut in your finger, you can get an infection, a really bad infection, because of the water quality down there right now. And then I haven't gotten any reports on the East Coast yet, but from what I have heard, it's fine over there. So the Fort Myers area is really the one that's taken the brunt.
Gotcha. And if anyone else has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We do have a couple more here. Can you speak a little bit about the different kinds of partners that the Paddling Trails Association works with, and then kind of in what capacity? I know you had mentioned earlier, like local governments and some of those businesses that offer discounts. If you could just talk a little bit more about how you work with other organizations or governments.
Oh, absolutely. Well, a couple examples. I'll start with one really good one. Up in Ecofina, we have an established campsite up there for the paddlers, and it kind of got a little bit of disrepair and needed some work and some upgrade. And we we being the Office of Greenways and Trails, Doug Alderson, myself, and one of our region directors, we all went up and met with the state park manager. He met us and we discussed a new campsite, and he's in the process of getting us a new campsite that's even easier to access than the current one right now. So it really is, it's like you don't show up to meet the state park manager and just go all down to business. It's really forming relationships with these people, because you're working with them all the time and they're there to support you, and we're trying to help them at the same time. So that's one really good example. One of the pictures I showed you, we were working with FWC. FWC maintains a lot of the site in all the sites in the Big Bend paddling trail area. So we work with them because we're using the same sites. So, you know, we were able to knock out those two big platforms, you know, in a couple days. Basically, it was a lot of hard work because we had to take the supplies out on a boat to this location, and actually in the cement and everything. So we had a team of volunteers, but it was, again, there was relationships and working relationships with FWC. We were able to get that accomplished a lot faster than if they tried to do it themselves. Excuse me.
Great, thank you for answering that. Yeah, a lot of people that tune into our webinars are involved with local governments or, you know, planning organizations. So just kind of giving an idea of how they could connect in with the Paddling Trails Association. Next question we have is, what is the best way to keep up with news and events related to FPTA? Do you have a newsletter, or are you guys on social media, or is it just the website?
Good, that's a great question. You can go onto the website and sign up for our emails, for our newsletter. We started doing a quarterly newsletter, but we've been actually pumping out a little bit more information on a more routine basis, but we still send out a quarterly newsletter. We are also on social media. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a great question. We do have a Facebook site and we are on Twitter.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a good way to connect with people these days, especially with sharing event information and stuff like that. And kind of a follow-up to that question, actually, do you guys hold like smaller events like paddling trips, and how are those advertised? If someone is a paddler and wants to get involved with FPTA, are there opportunities to meet other paddlers through the organization? Do you have like meetup groups or anything like that?
Okay, so right now what we have, we have paddling clubs that are members. And so if someone is in an area, say, for example, in the Miami area, we can refer them to that paddling group, and that paddling club, for example, the one in the South Florida Paddlers are in Miami. They hold training sessions and paddles, and, you know, learn from each other. So right now we're connecting people to paddle clubs. But we do have a vision to start doing some type of paddle events around the state and some paddle training, but we don't have that established yet. Gotcha.
Great. Well, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat. And I see in the chat here that Doug Alderson is joining us, and he has put in the link to information about the CT that's on the OGT website. So everyone feel free to check out that link that was shared, and bookmark that if you're interested in learning more about FPTA or OGT or the CT. And I don't think I'm hearing any other questions. Last chance for any questions. And of course, Dorsey's contact info is here on the screen, so feel free to write that down. And Dorsey, I assume you'd be all right with people reaching out to you if they have follow-up questions about the presentation or FPTA?
Absolutely.
Great. Awesome. Let's see here.
Yeah, one thing. This is Doug.
Yeah.
You hear me? Yeah. So I just wanted to say great job, Dorsey. And I'm really pleased the FPTA is doing so well in helping manage the trail because I knew that without the volunteer support group, it wouldn't happen. That's why we got this going in 2007. But the biggest challenge in laying out the trail is really, if you think about the state with its population, and a lot of those people live along the coast, is how you find overnight camping and some hotels for the entire distance around the coast. And that's still a challenge, but it's doable. As you see, people are doing the trail. So some people said it couldn't be done, but obviously it can be done. And it's the challenge is keeping those sites open and establishing new ones.
Thank you, Doug. That's a good point.
Yeah, we did have one other question come in. Thank you, Doug, for chiming in as well. Karina, I think is how you say it. She said she's going to be the lecturer for a riverboat cruise on the St. John's and was wondering if it's possible to have a representative from FPTA to meet and greet people on the cruise. And how can riverboat cruises better serve the interests of paddlers?
Wonderful. I would, is it Karina?
I believe that's how you pronounce
Okay.
it. If she wants to unmute, come on
Okay.
in.
Karina, if you wouldn't mind, just send me an email and we'll connect and talk about what exactly what you're looking for and see if we can support you.
Sure, thank you. Will
You're
do.
welcome.
Great. All right, well, I think we've went through all the questions here. So like I said, again, if anyone wants to reach out to Dorothy, feel free to do so. Or us, the Office of Greenways and Trails. You can find us at Office of Greenways and Trails at floridadep.gov. And as I mentioned, we did record today, so we will be sending out a recording of this webinar. And thank you so much, Dorothy, for the great presentation and all the information. And thank you all for joining us today for the webinar. Next month, we are featuring the next month, we're featuring the Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation. So that will be our December webinar, and you can sign up for that on our website if you haven't already, and we'll be emailing out the link. And again, any other questions, you can go ahead and send it to the Office of Greenways and Trails at floridadep.gov or reach out to Dorothy directly if it's involving FPTA. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next month.